My name is Tara Reid. You probably know the name. If not, you might have heard of my brother, Jake Reid. He was a hero, a police officer who served his community with pride and dedication, often risking his life to keep us all safe. He was everything I could never be, or so I thought. The golden child, the one everyone looked up to. He was my family's pride and joy. And me? Well, I was just Tara. The one who worked in the background. The dispatcher. The one who didn't wear the uniform and wasn't called into dangerous situations. But what no one knew was that I had my own role to play. And what I'd eventually learn is that it was bigger than anyone could have ever imagined. Jake's death hit me like a freight train. It was sudden, a tragic shooting in the line of duty. The cartel had infiltrated our local police force, but Jake was too close to the truth. The bullet that took him away was the same one that broke our family. I stood at the funeral, numb, trying to keep my composure as the world around me shattered. I had lost my brother, but the real pain came from the way everyone saw me afterward, or rather, didn't see me. I was still just a dispatcher, still the one behind the scenes, the one whose work didn't carry the same weight. The one whose contributions weren't as important as those wearing badges. But today, at my brother's police memorial, I would show everyone that I wasn't just anything. The ceremony was supposed to be a celebration of Jake's life and service. My parents had invited everyone, law enforcement, family, close friends. The church was packed with officers, colleagues, and people whose lives had been touched by Jake. The air was thick with grief, but there was also this sense of admiration for my brother. Everyone had stories to tell about how he had made a difference. And yet, as I stood there, trying to hold back tears, I couldn't help but feel completely invisible. I was standing in the shadows, as I always did. My father, whom I loved dearly, stood up to speak. His voice cracked as he talked about Jake's bravery, his devotion to the job, and his love for the community. I had always admired my father, and I wanted him to be proud of me, too. But in that moment, I felt as though I didn't exist in his eyes. And Tara, my father said, his voice quivering, she's just a dispatcher. She helped with the logistics, but Jake was the real hero. I stood there, my heart shattering in my chest. Just a dispatcher. The words burned through me. For years, I had worked tirelessly behind the scenes, making sure my brother and the officers had the information they needed to stay safe, to do their jobs. I was the one who picked up the phone in the middle of the night, coordinated responses, and kept track of critical intel. But in my father's eyes, none of that mattered. I wasn't the hero. I wasn't the one getting the recognition. I wasn't the one wearing the badge. The room was silent for a moment after my father's words. It was as if everyone was waiting for me to say something, to justify myself, to defend my role. But I didn't. I couldn't. I simply stood there, swallowing the lump in my throat, my eyes focused on the floor. I had spent my entire life in the shadows, never asking for attention, but this was too much. My father's words cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. He saw me as nothing more than a background figure in Jake's story, as if all the work I did wasn't even worth acknowledging. It felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. And then, just as I was about to walk away, trying to escape the sting of humiliation, something incredible happened. A man in a black suit approached me. He had a look of urgency in his eyes, but there was something about his presence that immediately caught my attention. He was someone I didn't recognize, but his badge was visible. It was FBI. "Agent Reid," he said, his voice steady, "we need you." The room seemed to freeze. My father turned toward me, his face filled with confusion. For a moment, it was as if everything stopped. The mourners, the ceremony, the weight of my father's dismissal, all of it vanished. The agent's words were like a thunderclap in the silence. "Agent Reid," my father exclaimed. His voice was filled with disbelief, and I saw the shock on his face as he processed the words. I stood there, motionless, as the agent handed me a phone. I could feel all eyes on me. Every single person in the room had stopped what they were doing to stare at me. My father's face twisted into a mixture of confusion and something I couldn't quite place, regret, maybe? But his shock was unmistakable. For the first time in my life, I saw him look at me differently. Agent Reid, we need you for the operation, the FBI agent said, his tone firm, but respectful. I felt the room shrink as my father's eyes met mine, his mouth slightly open. I took the phone from the agent, my fingers trembling. The voice on the other end was familiar, but this time, the words were different. We've located the cartel members who infiltrated the memorial, the voice on the phone said. We need you to lead the operation. We've been waiting for your expertise. The world shifted beneath me. I had been working this case for months, gathering intel, making sure the pieces fit, watching everything from the shadows. My brother and I had been working together, but in different ways. He had been the officer in the field, while I had been the one orchestrating the movements, tracking the criminals, piecing together the clues. But no one had known that. No one had ever seen me for what I truly was, an FBI agent working on a case that would bring down the cartel that killed my brother. Agent Reid, we're ready when you are, the voice on the phone continued. I looked at my father. His face, once filled with pride for Jake, was now filled with something else, something I had never seen before. It was as if he was finally seeing me for who I really was. Dad, I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. I've been working this case. I'm not just a dispatcher. I've been tracking the cartel. We've been working together, but from different angles. Now, it's time to finish this. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw the confusion on my father's face, the realization slowly sinking in. For the first time, I felt a shift, not just in my father's eyes, but in my entire life. I walked out of the room, following the agent to the car. As we made our way to the operation site, I could feel the weight of everything that had just happened. I had been underestimated, dismissed, and ignored. But none of that mattered now. The mission was in motion, and I was at the center of it. I wasn't just a dispatcher. I was an agent. And today, I would prove it. The operation went smoothly. We located the cartel members who had infiltrated the memorial and arrested them in a swift, coordinated strike. As they were led away in handcuffs, I stood there, knowing that my brother had been with me in spirit the entire time. Together, we had brought down the criminals who had taken his life. But it wasn't the victory that mattered most. It was the moment my father realized who I truly was. His stunned expression when he saw me in action, working alongside the FBI, was all the validation I needed. I had finally proven that I wasn't just anything. I was someone who mattered. Someone who had been overlooked, but not anymore. The day ended quietly, with me feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I didn't need to speak to my father. I didn't need his approval anymore. I had lived my truth, and in doing so, I had shown him, and everyone else, what I was capable of. In the end, sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud or violent. It's about living authentically and showing the world, and your family, that you are so much more than they ever gave you credit for. And that, for me, was the greatest victory of all.